Hello everyone. So welcome to this tutorial. So today in this tutorial I am going to explain a very important few WebDriver wait commands from Selenium. So today the agenda I will be just explaining in this first screen. So here I'll just explain what are the topics I am going to cover today, and basically I'll be emphasizing on the Selenium Fluent wait. So let's go to this topic what I'm going to cover today. So first is that what are the Selenium wait commands which we use in any of the test execution using Selenium WebDriver. And next is that what is a Fluent wait and why do we use it? What is the basic significance of the Selenium Fluent wait? And the next point is about the implementation of Fluent wait in Selenium, and how we can implement using Java functional interface, which has been introduced in Java 8. That is the fourth topic. And last topic is explanation of sample code using Fluent with, and how we can execute the Selenium Fluent with, and how we can execute a necessary scenario with an expected condition. So that is today's agenda, and the prerequisite of this tutorial will be the candidate should have a basic understanding of Selenium WebDriver, and the candidate also should have some basic knowledge on Java 7 or Java 8. What are the basic functions are working in Java 7 or Java 8? He should be having the basic understanding of the same. So let's go to the first topic. What are the Selenium wait commands? So Selenium wait is a very important topic. So in automation testing, why we use wait? So waiting makes any test execution pause for a certain amount of time before continuing for the next step. So Selenium WebDriver provides various commands for implementation of this wait functionality. So, what are the wait commands are available? First is definitely it's an implicit wait. Second is that explicit wait, and the third is the fluent wait. So, what is implicit wait? So, in case of implicit wait, we tell the WebDriver to wait for a certain amount of time before throwing a no such element exception. So, it is used to provide the WebDriver a default waiting time between each consecutive test or step or command across the entire test scripts. So once I define the implicit wait time, say for X seconds, then the next step or next execution will only run after waiting for the specified second. Whatever you are specifying X or Y seconds, the next step will only execute after X second has been elapsed. So there are some drawbacks here there for implicit wait, as it increases the script execution time. That's why we have we have been introduced with the next set of wait commands, that is explicit wait. So for implicit wait, the sample code is very simple. So driver.manage.timeout.implicitly wait. Then we have to give the time unit in seconds or whatever it feasible. In case of explicit wait, we define to wait for a certain condition to occur before proceeding further in the code. So in explicit wait, we use the command as expected condition, and the script will execute once the expected condition is being met. So here, if you can see, we are initializing a Firefox driver and we are navigating to some page, and it's a concept. It has been introduced in Selenium to play around the wait commands, and with this it will wait either for the stipulated amount of time or the expected condition to occur, whichever occurs first. So if in this case it will wait for a specified of 10 seconds, or it will wait for the expected condition, and it will check whether the presence of the elements which is located by this by dynamic element. This is nothing but the id of our expected element. So we are identifying with by.id method, and if it is finding that particular element in the web page, then the expected condition is met and script will go for the next step. And if it is not found, then it will wait for the specified second and it will go for the next step. So that is for the expected condition. So there are few cases which we have faced that whatever our record or whatever our expected scenario we want to evolve, that is not being met with these two selenium wait commands, that is implicit and explicit wait. That's why fluent wait has been introduced in selenium. So which is a very useful topic for today. So this fluent wait is an interface which defines the maximum amount to wait for a condition as well as the frequency by which it will check that particular element whether it is being visible or not in a particular web page. So this fluent wait use a few parameters. The very important parameters or the very useful and mandatory parameters are timeout value, uh, timeout value and polling frequency. So first is that timeout value. What is this? So this is the maximum amount of time to wait for a condition. And second is the polling frequency. So what is this polling frequency? So this is being also mentioned here, that it is the frequency to check the success or failure of a specified condition. So the timeout value or timeout period will exist, and within this timeout period this particular fluent wait will check for the existence of a particular element with a frequency span of whatever you are mentioning in your code. I'll explain in my sample code, then it will be more clearer to you. And also the next parameter is, if I want to configure this wait to ignore such specific exceptions like no such element exception, then I can add also this piece of code to my fluent wait. Now let's go to the fluent wait implementation part. So if you can see here, this fluent wait is a this is a class which is being introduced in Java, and it extends that java.lang.object and it implements wait interface. Now what is this T and why it is being specified in angular bracket, that I'll explain next. So this is a concept introduced in Java 8 which is called as functional interface. So functional interface, what is this? So functional interface, if you can see here, it is an interface which is having only one abstract method. Then this particular interface will be called as functional interface. If interface, we know, if you are know, if you all know that what is interface, interface can have or might have one or more abstract methods. But if an interface is having only one, exactly one abstract method, that is called functional interface. So here this wait is a functional interface because this wait is on having only one function, that is until. So this is the way to implement or to provide the implementation of functional interface with angular bracket as T. So if you can see here, predicate within angular bracket T interface, which is called functional interface, which is having some method test as parameter as object to return a boolean value. So in Java, wait is called a functional interface. So this implementation of wait interface, that will have some timeout and polling interval of whatever is required, and we can implement this wait interface with the usage of fluent wait. So you can see here we are giving the implementation of wait interface with a generic as WebDriver, and then new fluent wait WebDriver, and then we are specifying with timeout. That means it will wait for 30 seconds for finding a particular element on the screen or on the web page, and it will poll in every 5 seconds within that 30 seconds of timeline, and it will ignore no such element exception dot class. Now here if you can see here, this is foo is a type of web element, and we are calling this wait.until function, and then we are writing some specific argument with a new function with angular bracket WebDriver and web element. Now we have to understand what does it mean and how it is defined like that. Now, as I have already mentioned that here we have using the concept of functional interface. Now, functional interface only have a single functionality to exhibit. Now, let's see how it has been implemented in Java 8 and how it was there in previous Java version like in Java 7 or Java 6. So, runnable, all we are all knowing that runnable is an interface which is used in thread, like when we are executing thread test cases or thread functionalities, so we implement runnable or we can extend thread class. So if you are implementing runnable, then we are overriding run method inside of a class. So here it is an implementation of runnable interface and we are overriding public void run method, and runnable is having only one function, that is run method, which we are implementing inside this particular function. So in the same manner, if we bring the concept of functional interface, then there will be one abstract function. Here in this case, run is the abstract method which is having only one functional only one method inside that runnable interface, and in this case we can write this particular piece of code in a modified version in Java 8. So what is this expression called? This is called lambda expression. And the lambda expression, the syntax of lambda expression is argument then body. So if you can see here, the same way the instance of runnable is here, and we are giving a no argument, and after that we are implementing whatever it is required to be implemented in that particular function. So here run is having no argument. So if you can see, runnable is a functional interface. That's why we are using lambda expression to create this instance. Since run method does not take any argument, so our lambda expression does not have any argument. So if you can see, it is not having any argument, and it is using as an if else block concept, and we are avoiding curly braces. So as there is only one statement, so we are only writing that particular statement. In case of multiple statements are required, then we can use curly braces as well. So that's why it has been implemented like that. Now let's go back to our Fluent wait example. So here you can see wait.until the new function WebDriver web elements. So the concept here is this until function will have a argument that will be a function, and that function will have two arguments. So if you can see here, wait.until, here one function will be executed, the implementation of one function will be there, and that function will have two argument. The first one will be definitely a WebDriver in this case, as we are executing the Selenium WebDriver cases, and the second one, it can be a web element or any boolean return type. So here this particular second argument will be our return type of the function which has been written inside this function. So this is nothing but an implementation of a function, just like in the previous XML example I have shown you that public void run. So it is having no argument, but here in this case we are using argument. As a run method does not take any argument, so it has been used with no argument, but here in this case this particular function is having two arguments. That's why it has been followed by these two arguments, after that the parenthesis, and inside that function I am writing the implementation of this function. So if you can see here, the return type is an web element. So what this code is doing, this code is checking existence of a particular element by identifying that particular element with ID, and it is returning the web element, and the first parameter of this function is the parameter of the inside function. So this is the function which is executing some functionality as per our requirement. So here in this particular example, this particular function is searching for a particular element of a web page with id as foo, and if it is finding that particular element with id and foo with id as foo, then it is returning this particular web element, and the return type of this particular function is web element. That's why the second parameter of the function, which is the main function, so the second parameter is the web element and the first parameter is the web driver. So this is the example of Fluent with code sample code. Now let's go back to our practical example. So here, if you can see, there is an code which is explaining Selenium Fluent with command and how it is being used in a practical example. I'm just explaining here. So here what I have done, I have created a particular project, and then I have created a package, and inside that I have created a .java file. So this .java file is importing the required jar files, the required packages, and then this particular import statement is very important for FluentWait, as it is importing the necessary packages for FluentWait so that we can write our necessary code to implement this FluentWait functionality. So now inside that I have created this code to execute our application in a Chrome driver. So I am using HTML page which I have created to explain this particular example. So this particular HTML page will open, and it will be having some dynamic color inside this particular page. Within a button, this dynamic color will be shown, and when this particular FluentWait code will execute this particular scenario, then if it is finding this particular color code inside that button of a web page, then it will return true, and if it is not finding this particular color code inside that button of this web page, then it will return false. And then if it is not finding within the specified time frame, then our code will be fail, our execution will fail. So we have given a default timeout also 250 milliseconds, and within 2 seconds also it will be polling this particular page, and it will be finding this particular element inside that web page. So now you can see here, so timeout we have given 2 seconds, and within these 2 seconds it will check the existence of this particular element with every 250 milliseconds. Now here I have given the piece of code to validate this particular color coding. So here the piece of code is there. So what is doing here, it is creating a function as I explained in my previous example. So the function is having two parameters. First is the web driver, second is the boolean. So if you can remember in our first example, in this function the first parameter was web driver and the second parameter was web element, because the return type of this function which is executing the functionality, the return type was web element. That's why the second parameter was web element. But in our case the return type is boolean, because our function will return as true or false. If it is finding the element, if it is finding this particular required color inside that button of the page, then it will return true. If it is not finding, then it will return false. Now let's see what does it do. So this is public boolean apply. So the code is finding this particular element with the id as dynamic color, and it is fetching the color code from this particular element, and then it is returning the value, the RGB value of this particular color. And if it is equals to some RGBA value, then it will return as true, and it will it will pass on some output to the console window, and if it is not finding this particular color, it will return as false. So to mention here the color of this particular text in the button is yellow. So let me execute this particular code, then you will be able to see what's happening here. So I'm executing this piece of code. So Selenium Chrome driver has been launched. So Selenium has launched its WebDriver and the Chrome driver has been launched. And if you can see here, the text inside this particular button has been displayed with yellow color, and my code is checking the existence of this yellow color with every 250 milliseconds and with a timeout of 2 seconds. So now 2 seconds has been elapsed. Let's see what is the output of my code. So if you can see, it has found the required color because the required color exists in the web page, which is in yellow, and the yellow color is having the RGB values as 255 25501. So I have given this particular equal statement inside my code. So it has checked for the existence of this particular color code within a timeout period, and it has found this particular color code with the RGB value as 255 25501, and that's why it has returned the value as found the required color. Now at any case, if I am changing this equal statement, like, so let's see what will be the output of my code. So I am executing my code. So again it has launched the Chrome driver, and again it is verifying the color coding inside the button of this web page, and it is verifying with every span of 250 milliseconds, and now 2 seconds is over. Now let's see what is the output of my code. Yeah, so if you can see here, it has tried to find this particular yellow color text inside that button, but it has not found that. So what the output of this particular code, it is showing that expected condition has been failed, and it has tried for 2 seconds with 250 milliseconds interval, but it was unable to find this particular element. That's why my test has failed. So hope you are able to understand how I have validated this functionality with the use of Fluent Wait. And wait.until, as I said, wait is an functional interface, and it is having the only one abstract method is until. So I am passing this particular function inside that wait.until function. So wait.until will be having a reference of a function, and that function implementation has been explained here. Like the same way I can write my code in this manner also, like wait.until, then we can write new function WebDriver boolean, and whatever the function we have written public boolean apply, we can write in this manner also, and it will give the same output. So that's all from my end. Hope you're able to understand how Selenium Fluid Weight works and how it has used the concept of functional interface with the explanation of this until function, wait.until function, and how it is passing a reference of a function, and what does this function contain, what are the parameters of this function, and how that function parameters are being used inside the function which is implementing the exact actual functionality, and how like within the time frame we are defining here, and how the timeout occurs and how it pulls the element within with the frequency span of any milliseconds, and if it is found how the selenium is verifying the functionality and how the test case execution happens. So I have tried to explain about this functionality of Fluent. So hope you have enjoyed my session. In case of any queries, you can get back to me. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for watching my video. Thanks.